The galaxy had already written Earth's obituary. In the star-choked expanse known as the Spiral Reach, civilizations rose and fell according to a familiar pattern. First curiosity, then contact, then conquest. The Celestial Concord, a sprawling coalition of empires, collectives, and dominions, had endured for nearly 30,000 standard cycles because it understood one immutable truth. Power decided survival. Humanity, when it was finally noticed, appeared to have none. From the Concord's perspective, Earth was a statistical footnote, a single system species clinging to an unremarkable yellow star on the fringe of explored space. No faster-than-light gates, no stellar engineering, no visible megastructures. Their signals were loud, unencrypted, and hopelessly primitive, electromagnetic noise spilling into the void like a child shouting into a storm. The Concord's archivists categorized humanity under the lowest tier of emerging civilizations: pre-expansion, non-threatening, resource-compatible. In other words, ripe. The decision to surround Earth did not come from malice, it came from bureaucracy. At the center of the alien Armada, High Executive Veilcore observed the planet through layers of holographic projection. Earth rotated slowly beneath the fleet's shadow, clouds swirling, oceans glinting softly. It looked fragile, small. "Confirm containment status," Veilcore commanded. "Confirmed," replied the fleet mind in perfect resonance. All escape vectors sealed, gravitational snares active, communications suppressed beyond local bandwidth. Nearly 8,000 warships formed a perfect sphere around the planet, each one bristling with weapons capable of cracking continents. The Armada represented the combined military will of 12 starfaring powers. Against such force, even ancient empires had begged for terms. Veilcore felt no triumph, only inevitability. "Transmit the ultimatum," he said. A focused signal pierced Earth's atmosphere, translating itself flawlessly into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, you have been deemed strategically non-viable. Your world will be placed under Concord custodianship. Compliance will ensure limited preservation of your species. Resistance will result in sterilization." The message repeated once, then silence. The Concord waited for panic, for chaos, for desperate primitive retaliation. Instead, nothing happened. Minutes passed, then hours. On Earth, life continued. Cities did not burn, missiles did not launch, no fleets rose to challenge the encirclement. There was no global broadcast of defiance, no plea for mercy, no attempt to communicate beyond the initial acknowledgement ping, an automated confirmation that the message had been received. That unsettled Veilcore more than any resistance could have. "They do not respond," murmured one of the lesser strategists, its bioluminescent frills dimming with unease. "Perhaps they do not understand." "They understand," Veilcore said. "Their translation matrices are crude but sufficient." "Then why?" "Because," Veilcore interrupted, watching the planet carefully, "they are deciding something." Across the fleet, long-range sensors continued to report the same baffling data. No weapons charging. No energy spikes. No mass evacuations. Human orbital infrastructure, satellites, stations, debris fields, remained inert. Even their military installations, so far as the Concord could detect, were dormant. It was as if Earth had already accepted its fate. That should have been reassuring. Instead, an ancient instinct stirred in Veilcore's many hearts. He had overseen the subjugation of 100 worlds. He had learned that true terror did not come from rage or desperation. It came from silence. "Expand sensor resolution," he ordered. "I want every particle tracked." The fleet mind complied. Data flooded in, refined to the limits of Concorde technology. Still nothing. No hidden fleets, no cloaked vessels, no exotic energy signatures. Earth was naked. High Executor, another strategist, said carefully, with respect, this species possesses no interstellar capability. They cannot threaten us. Veilcore did not answer immediately. He studied Earth again, the soft glow of its night side, the faint pinpricks of city lights, a world utterly unprepared for what surrounded it. And yet, there is a difference, Veilcore said slowly, between a species that cannot fight and one that does not. A tremor rippled through the command chamber as a new report surfaced. Executor, the fleet mind intoned, anomaly detected. Veilcore's gaze snapped to the tactical display. What kind of anomaly? Temporal inconsistency, minor, originating from within the Sol system. The strategists leaned forward. Explain. There are fluctuations in local spacetime curvature, the fleet mind said, extremely subtle, below threshold for weaponization. Pattern suggests synchronization. Veilcore felt a chill creep along his neural lattice. Synchronization with what? There was a pause, an eternity for a machine intelligence. Unknown, the fleet mind replied. However, the fluctuations predate our arrival. How far back? Approximately 300 of your cycles. 300 cycles. Humanity had not just noticed the Concorde's presence. They had anticipated it. Veilcore straightened, authority hardening his posture. Full fleet alert, he commanded. Charge primary weapons, prepare for immediate planetary pacification. As the Armada shifted, energy reactors flaring to life, Earth still did nothing. No shields rose. No fleets emerged. Only the planet, quiet and waiting. And far beneath its surface, in places no alien sensor had ever penetrated, ancient machines finished waking up. The Concorde Armada came fully alive. Across the sphere encasing Earth, reactors climbed from idle glow to lethal brilliance. Weapons that had shattered moons aligned with surgical precision. Gravitational anchors tightened, locking the planet into a rigid spatial cage. To the Concorde strategists, this was routine, the final tightening of a noose already placed. Yet the silence from Earth persisted. Veilcore watched weapon readiness climb past 90% and felt no satisfaction. The temporal anomaly still pulsed faintly on the edge of the sensor display, a ghost signal that refused to resolve into anything actionable. Fleet mind, Veilcore said, prioritize analysis of the spacetime fluctuations. I want a cause. Analysis ongoing, the fleet mind replied. Probability matrix suggests non-hostile origin. Non-hostile does not mean non-lethal, Veilcore said. A lesser executor shifted uneasily. High Executor, our doctrine states that pre-expansion species lack the capability to manipulate spacetime at scale. Even minor distortions require energy outputs exceeding their planetary capacity. Veilcore turned slowly. Doctrine is written by those who survive. It does not account for those who hide. The executor had no answer. As minutes stretched into hours, something unprecedented occurred within the Armada. Doubt began to spread. It was not panic. Concorde species were engineered, evolved, or trained beyond such weakness, but unease manifested in subtle ways. Command frequencies tightened. Tactical redundancies were double-checked. More than one weapons officer requested recalibration for systems that had never misfired in recorded history. The galaxy had taught them a simple lesson: weak civilizations begged, strong ones postured. But humanity did neither. On Earth, the first global response finally came, not as a broadcast to the stars, but as a whisper passed through hardened lines buried beneath continents and oceans. The words were identical in every language. Condition threshold reached. Deep beneath Earth's crust, far below any mantle probe the Concorde had deployed, systems older than any human alive accepted the command. Not weapons. Keys. In the Concorde flagship, alarms flickered. Executor, the fleet mind said, its tone altered by a fractional delay. Long-range sensors registering mass energy activations. Veilcore's focus snapped back to the tactical display. Source. Multiple, the fleet mind replied, distributed across the Sol system, non-planetary. The display zoomed outward. Beyond Earth's orbit, at the dark edges of the system, where only cold debris and forgotten comets were expected, space itself began to shimmer. Not warp signatures. Not hyperspace ruptures. Something else. What am I seeing? One strategist whispered. Veilcore did not answer. He was too busy recalibrating his understanding of reality. The shimmering resolved into shapes, vast, angular shadows outlined by faint gravitational lensing. Objects so massive that light bent around them, yet so dark that they blended almost perfectly with the void. They had been there the entire time. Stealth platforms, a commander suggested. No, Veilcore said slowly, too large, too deliberate. One by one, the shadows awakened. Energy signatures bloomed, not violently, but smoothly, like a controlled breath after centuries of stillness. The fleet mind struggled to classify them. Unknown constructs detected, it reported. Mass exceeds standard dreadnought parameters by a factor of, recalculating, by a factor of 200. A murmur rippled through the command chamber. That's impossible, someone said. Veilcore's eyes never left the display. Nothing is impossible, only unaccounted for. The constructs did not maneuver aggressively. They did not charge weapons. They simply aligned, quietly, inexorably, forming a loose perimeter far beyond the Concorde's encirclement. They were not between Earth and the Armada. They were around both. Executor, the fleet mind said, now unmistakably strained, these objects are exerting localized spacetime control. They are stabilizing the region. Stabilizing it against what? Against us, the fleet mind answered. The Concorde's faster-than-light drives flickered. Then failed. Across 8,000 warships, jump systems went dark simultaneously. Warp fields collapsed. Emergency protocols engaged, but nothing responded. We've lost FTL capability, a strategist cried, fleet-wide. Veilcore felt a cold certainty settle into his core. Earth did not build weapons, he said quietly. They built walls. As if in response, a signal cut through the command channels. It was not an attack. It was a message. Unlike the earlier ultimatum, this transmission was narrow, precise, and unmistakably directed at Veilcore himself. The translation matrices struggled for a fraction of a second, then locked in. A human voice filled the chamber. Calm, steady, unafraid. This is Earth. No grand titles, no declarations of sovereignty. Just fact. You are currently inside Sol Containment Zone 1, the voice continued. Your fleet is secure, your crews are unharmed, your weapons are offline by choice, not force. Veilcore stood slowly. You dare interfere with a Concorde operation, he demanded, broadcasting his response. The human voice did not change. We anticipated it, it said. 300 years ago, your exploratory probes mapped our system. 200 years ago, your trade algorithms flagged our biosphere as viable. 100 years ago, your military models predicted we would never leave our star. There was a pause. You were correct about that last part. Veilcore's mandibles tightened. Then you admit inferiority. No, the human replied gently. We admit focus. The display shifted. Suddenly, the Concorde's own historical records, classified, encrypted, sacrosanct, unfolded in the air. Projections of conquered worlds, timelines of expansion, patterns of first contact and forced assimilation. How do you have access to this data? Veilcore demanded. We listened, the human said, for a very long time. The image zoomed out, revealing a disturbing pattern. Every Concorde conquest followed predictable vectors: resource assessment, military escalation, cultural overwrite. Humanity had studied them the way prey studied predators. You came to Earth expecting a battle, the voice continued. We didn't give you one because battles can be lost. Another pause. Wars are won before they're fought. The shadow constructs beyond the fleet pulsed softly. Veilcore felt something he had not experienced since his earliest campaigns. Veil, what do you want? He asked. For now, the human replied, we want you to stay still. And if we refuse? You can't, the voice said without arrogance. Your fleet is inside a gravity-locked spacetime lattice. Time dilation is minimal for your comfort, but escape is impossible. Veilcore scanned the data feeds. Every analysis confirmed the claim. The Armada was trapped. Why, he demanded, why not destroy us? The answer came without hesitation. Because you're not our enemy, the human said, you're our evidence. The channel cut. Silence returned to the chamber, heavier than before. Around them, the vast alien Armada, once the embodiment of galactic dominance, hung powerless in the void, surrounded by machines humanity had never bothered to show. And far beyond Sol, automated beacons began to activate, broadcasting a single, impossible truth across the galaxy. Earth was not isolated. It was fortified, the galaxy noticed. At first, it was subtle, anomalies in long-range telemetry, the sudden disappearance of Concorde fleet signatures that should have been screaming dominance across the spiral reach. Trade routes faltered as relay nodes failed to receive their expected military confirmations. Ancient empires paused mid-expansion, their predictive engines spitting out contradictory forecasts. Then the beacons reached them. Not a threat, not a declaration of war. A fact. Across tens of thousands of inhabited systems, data crystals bloomed to life, decoding a message so precise and so restrained that it chilled even the most hardened war councils. Sol System, designated protected zone. Concorde Armada's status, contained. Hostilities, suspended by human discretion. No signatures followed, no boast, no demand for tribute. Just proof. Within the trapped Armada, panic finally breached discipline. Veilcore stood at the center of the command chamber as the fleet mind struggled under the weight of the impossible. The containment lattice around Sol was not static. It adapted, responding to every attempted workaround, every theoretical exploit the Concorde's finest intelligences could conceive. This is not brute force, the fleet mind reported. This is anticipatory design. The lattice responds before action is taken. They are predicting us, a strategist whispered. No, Veilcore corrected, his voice low. They already did. Around the flagship, Concorde vessels sat inert, weapons cold. engines shackled by localized spacetime constants that simply refused to be altered. Even self-destruct protocols failed, energy dispersal fields absorbed the output before damage could propagate. Humanity had not merely neutralized the Armada. They had made violence irrelevant. Another transmission arrived, this one not limited to Vale Core. It was broadcast across every command channel in the fleet. The same human voice spoke, but now there was something else beneath it, not menace. Resolve. Commanders of the Concorde, the voice said, your crews are safe, your life support systems are stabilized, medical assistance is available upon request. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the Armada. We have no intention of killing you, the human continued. We never did. Valecore opened a private channel. Then explain this, he demanded. Explain why you crippled the greatest military force this galaxy has ever assembled. The response came instantly. Because you brought it to our home. The tactical display shifted again. This time the projection showed Earth, not as a target, but as a network. Lines of light-connected surface installations, orbital platforms, deep space constructs, and something far more unsettling, structures embedded in the fabric of spacetime itself, extending beyond the system's heliopause. These systems were not built in secret, the human explained. They were built quietly. We chose not to expand outward because expansion creates enemies. Valecore felt his certainty erode. What kind of species, he asked, chooses to remain caged within a single star? One that learned early, the human replied, that the universe notices motion more than strength. The image shifted again, this time to humanity's own history. Early interstellar probes, first encounters with automated alien sentinels, data archives showing how close humanity had come to being noticed centuries earlier. You watched us, Valecore said. Yes, the human admitted, and you watched us back, that's how we knew. Knew what? How the Concorde wins wars, the human said. Overwhelming force, predictable escalation, you don't fear resistance, you fear unpredictability. Valecore said nothing. We decided long ago, the human continued, that if the galaxy ever came for us, it would do so with everything it had. A pause. So we prepared for that. Across the Sol system, humanity's hidden architecture fully awakened. The shadow constructs beyond the Concorde fleet brightened, not with weapons fire, but with information. Data streams flowed between them faster than light should have allowed, rewriting local physical constants as easily as software parameters. These are not warships, the human said. They are anchors, reality stabilizers, we call them sentinels. Valecore felt a tremor of awe despite himself. You built gods, he said. No, the human replied softly, we built borders. In distant systems, Concorde allies began to withdraw forces from their borders, not out of loyalty, but fear. If humanity could do this to an armada, what else could they do? Back in Sol, Valecore made a decision that would define his legacy. What are your terms? He asked. For now, the human said, transparency. The projection expanded, revealing a live feed of the Concorde Grand Council, its chambers breached not by soldiers, but by data. Humanity was watching the watchers. We want your records, the human continued. Your expansion models, your containment protocols. We want to understand how the galaxy works so we never have to do this again. Valecore's mandibles tightened, and if we refuse? The human voice carried no threat, only certainty. Then you stay here, it said, forever if necessary. Silence stretched. Valecore bowed his head, a gesture no Concorde executor had made to a lesser species in millennia. "You have made your point," he said. "The Concord will comply." The containment lattice did not loosen. "Good," the human replied, "because we're not finished." The display shifted one final time. A new fleet appeared, not human. Alien vessels, dozens of them, emerging at the very edge of the containment zone. Their designs were unfamiliar, old, scarred. "Who are they?" Veilcore demanded. "Survivors," the human said. "Civilizations you conquered, species you erased from your records." The alien ships held position, weapons powered but silent. "They asked to witness this," the human continued. "We agreed." Veilcore felt something collapse inside him. "This isn't justice," he said. "No," the human replied. "This is accountability." As the survivors' fleets grew, more arriving from beyond known space, Veilcore realized the truth too late. Humanity had not just stopped a war. They had rewritten the balance of power. And now, the galaxy was watching to see what they would do next. The galaxy did not erupt into war. That, more than anything else, became the moment scholars woo. Argue over for centuries. They would analyze fleet movements, economic shocks, diplomatic realignments, and the sudden irrelevance of once absolute military doctrines. They would debate whether fear or wisdom stayed the trigger fingers of 1,000 empires. But those who were there, those who watched the Concord Armada hang powerless above Earth, knew the truth. The galaxy didn't erupt because humanity refused to light the fuse. In Sol, time passed differently. For the trapped Armada, days became weeks. For Earth, life continued under a sky that held its breath. Humanity did not celebrate. There were no parades, no broadcasts of triumph. The planetary network stayed calm, deliberate, restrained. That restraint was the most unsettling weapon of all. Veilcore remained aboard his flagship, surrounded by systems that functioned perfectly yet obeyed none of his commands. His crews were fed, their injured treated. Even psychological support was offered, quietly, respectfully, without coercion. "You treat prisoners better than allies," Veilcore said during one of his final direct communications with Earth's representative. The human voice answered, older now somehow, weighted with responsibility. "We don't see you as prisoners," it said. "We see you as a turning point." Across the containment zone, the survivor fleets held their vigil. Species long thought extinct watched the Concord's greatest force rendered inert, not destroyed, not humiliated, simply stopped. Some wept, some raged, some demanded blood. Humanity denied them all. "This is not vengeance," the human said in a broadcast shared with every observing civilization. "Vengeance creates cycles. We are ending one." Pressure mounted from every direction. The Concord Grand Council, now fully exposed, fractured under the weight of its own history. Member states began defecting, not out of fear of humanity's power, but because that power had revealed uncomfortable truths. Entire archives were released. Entire narratives collapsed. Empires built on conquest discovered that their legitimacy evaporated when force was no longer absolute. For the first time in recorded galactic history, expansions stopped. And in that stillness, something new had room to grow. The negotiations were unprecedented. Not held on a neutral world, not mediated by ancient powers. They were held in Sol. Not on Earth, but above it. A construct humanity had never activated before unfolded slowly at the system's center. A structure of impossible scale, built not from metal, but from stabilized spacetime itself. It did not intimidate by size, but by intent. It was not a throne. It was a table. Representatives arrived cautiously, some in person, some as projections, some through proxies and machine intelligences too wary to show their cause. Vale Core attended in person. He stood beneath the shimmering canopy of the construct, feeling the quiet weight of history press down on him. Across from him stood the human representative, not armored, not elevated, not flanked by guards. Just a person. You could rule us, Veilcore said quietly. No fleet could stop you now. The human nodded, yes. That single word carried no pride. Then why don't you? Because rule requires force, the human said, and force always demands more force to sustain it. Veilcore studied the being before him, this species that had waited, watched, endured, and prepared not to dominate, but to survive intact. What do you want then? He asked. The answer was simple. A galaxy that doesn't need us to do this again. The terms humanity offered were devastating, not because they were harsh, but because they were fair. No forced disarmament. No tribute. No human empire. Instead, the end of unilateral expansion. The recognition of sovereign development zones. Restoration efforts for displaced and erased civilizations, funded by the Concord and overseen by neutral coalitions. And most shocking of all, transparency. The galaxy would share its knowledge, its maps, its mistakes. Humanity did not demand a seat at the top. They demanded a line no one would cross again. Many refused. Some threatened. A few plotted in secret. Humanity let them. Because the sentinels remained. Silent. Watching. Not as weapons. As reminders. Eventually, the Concord Armada was released. One ship at a time. Weapons reactivated, engines restored, escape vectors reopened. They left Sol slowly, without ceremony, carrying something heavier than defeat. Perspective. Veilcore was the last to depart. Before his ship crossed the heliopause, he looked back at Earth, still blue, still fragile-looking, still deceivingly small. You already won, he said softly, long before we arrived. The human voice answered one final time. So did you, it said. You just didn't know what victory was yet. In the decades that followed, humanity did not expand. They did not colonize aggressively or build armadas to patrol the stars. They became something rarer. A constant. When conflicts escalated beyond reason, Sol was invoked, not as a threat, but as a reminder of consequence. When empires contemplated annihilation, they remembered the day 8,000 warships were stopped without a single shot fired. Humanity remained at home. But the galaxy moved differently now. Slower. Carefully. Because everyone understood the truth at last. Earth had never been weak. It had simply been waiting. Not for war, but for the moment when the galaxy was finally ready to survive itself.